welcome to another episode of the PG podcast. So, guess what? I'm in my kitchen today because, as you may know, at the time of this recording, the studio, which is in my church, is out of bounds. Yes, we have an eviction notice on our building, so we can't go in. But the podcast must go on, so we're recording in my kitchen today, which is so awesome for me. I got my trusty cup of coffee, and my friends are here helping me record this. So we're excited. I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today. For the next few minutes, I want to talk to you about living life without regrets. You know, the one thing we can all be sure of in this life, no matter who we are, no matter what our background was like, no matter what we're doing at this point in time, is that you're eventually going to die. I know you're like, Pastor Shara, can we talk about something less morbid? Well, it's November. It's going to be December in just a few short weeks, and the year is going to close. I don't know about you, but let me tell you something. 2019 has been a whirlwind. It came and it's going so fast that I don't even know how fast the months went by. Well, PG Community and the Preacher Girl podcast was started in 2019. I can't believe how far we've come. Over 1,000 of us are in this community, and maybe by the time you're hearing this podcast, there will be tens of thousands of us. Who knows what God has in mind? But every year, a lot of people all over the world make resolutions, and we look back on the year and we decide whether we made good use of it or whether we wasted our time. If I asked you, what happened in 2015 that changed your life or made a major difference? Or pick another year, 2010, whatever year it was. Unless there was some benchmark occasion that happened, like you got married or you lost a loved one, or it was your 40th birthday or your 30th birthday or whatever, chances are the year just swam right by you and you have nothing to remember. And we're okay with that. For the most part, human beings are okay with remembering nothing. But regret is a whole different kettle of fish. Scientists have studied for decades and decades what people say on their deathbeds. And on people's deathbeds, their last comments are usually, I regret this and I regret that. And people generally have the same sets of regrets. And you know what? The most regretted thing that people cite is not letting the people you know and the people you love know that you love them. That's what everybody says. I regret not letting those that I love know how I feel. The second major regret is not doing what they loved more. Nobody has ever said on their deathbed, I wish I had worked harder. I know. So right now, if you're beating up yourself for not working harder or not putting in enough hours at the office, girl, let yourself off the hook. Because one day that will not matter. And yes, it is important to earn a living. It is important to support your family. But I'm telling you, harder work does not make a happier person. Anyway, we're going to dive right in. I'm going to give you 4 really amazing time-tested truth of the Word of God secrets to make sure that this life that you live won't be full of regrets. So if you're ready, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I want to ask you, just for full disclosure, do you have things in your life that you regret? I mean, can you think, what is your biggest regret in life? Now, I don't want you to share it because for some of you, it's highly personal, and I'm sure that we all have things that if we could do it differently, we'd go back and just, make different decisions. Everybody has them. Everybody has those things that they say, well, I might have not done it exactly the same way I did it because it would have had a different outcome. But, whatever those regrets are, whatever those things are that you think caused you to be in the place of life that you are now, these next 4 tips are going to help you overcome that, so that when you stand before God, or if you come to the end of your life, that you could look back and say, you know what? I lived well. I enjoyed my life. I did everything that God wanted me to do, and I have no regrets. Won't that be amazing? Okay, so the very first thing I wrote here is see it as finished and not as failure. And I just, I need to get this in everybody's spirit. This is how I live, and it really has helped me overcome some major obstacles in my life. To see a thing as being finished rather than seeing it as a failure. Let me explain what I mean. There are some of us who have regretted huge chunks of life. So say you had a failed marriage, or say you failed high school, or you didn't pay attention in college and you flunked out, or whatever. You take those 4 years, or those 3 years, or 10 years, whatever time span it happened in, and you chalk it up to a failure, and you say, you know what, I failed in that part of my life. Or you started a business and it flopped, and you're like, well, I failed that business. If you look at it that way, you're always going to have a regret about ever beginning, about ever goofing off, about ever making the wrong choice for a mate. You'll always see it as a huge mistake and a regret. But as a child of God, I feel like if God gives us the permission to see something as finished, not as a failure. So you may have had, let's say, you flunked out of college. Let's use that as the regret. Instead of saying, you know what, I failed at college, let me tell you what actually happened. You finished that season of your life. That whole season where you went to school, and instead of paying attention, and instead of applying yourself, you goofed off. It is a season that you lived through and you completed it. Whether or not you got a diploma, whether you got a good grade, whether the marriage lasted, whether you got the home, whether the business succeeded, is irrelevant. What happened is it occurred, and now it's over. God has closed the chapter, and you need to begin to see it that way. You know what? I didn't fail at that. I finished that. Isn't that amazing that you could say that? It is done, and now the new chapter has begun. You know how many times I started businesses? There was this one time I had this fantastic idea. It was gonna work. I was gonna make soap. Yes, soap. So I know there are lots of people who became millionaires making soap, right? So I love a good soap. I like, soaps that smell good and that have organic ingredients and smell like oatmeal. And I love that kind of thing. So I decided I was going to start a soap business. So I took all the money we had in the world, which about that time was like $314. And I bought all the ingredients, the glycerin, which I know I shouldn't have bought in the first place, and the rose oil, and the essences and molds. And I went to Hobby Lobby and just went nuts. Now, at that time, we really didn't have the money to do it, but I was so convinced that this was going to be a winner, and people would be knocking my doors down to buy my soaps. So I used all the money, and I got my friend Jody involved. Jody was involved in almost every harebrained scheme I've ever had. So we were going to make the first set of soaps. Girl, let me tell you something. I not only couldn't make a bar of soap to save my life, I wasted all our money, and we were in a position where we couldn't even afford gas money or food, but I was just trying to make money for our family, and it, for a long time, because we struggled so bad at that point in our lives, it was a point of such shame for me that I wasted our money, I wasted my time, I told everybody about the soap business, and then it didn't work out. I let that regret compound and stop me from starting other ventures that I wanted to, until one day the Lord said to me, you know what? That wasn't a failure. It's just a finished portion of your life. And it opened up my eyes to every aspect of my life that have counted as a failure. It wasn't a failure. It's just finished. So girl, whatever it is that you think you failed at, I need you to see right now that God's saying you didn't fail. You just finished it. Now the new chapter of your life starts. Just let that go, close that part of the book, and move on to what's next. The second thing I found to make sure that you don't live with regrets is to realize that it's not too late until you're dead. It's not. I'm just saying, instead of thinking so hard about what you should have done, could have done, you should have chosen a different degree, you should have, all of that is not going to be any good to you. You should have married a different man, you should have picked a different place to live, you should have been born in another state. If those things are not changeable, then you need to take steps necessary to make sure that the rest of your life goes differently. Now, I'm so tired of people saying things like, it's too late for me. I'm 35 years old. Are you kidding? No, I even hear some of you saying, I'm 70 years old, it's too late. And that is so far removed from the truth of God. If anything, the Word of God has taught us is that age is just a number. It is irrelevant. God can use you in the later parts of your life in greater ways than He ever used you in the younger parts of your life. Isn't that exciting? That whatever age you find yourself in now, whether you're 60 or you're 16, it is the perfect moment for God to begin a next thing, a new thing, a better thing in your life. And so it's not too late until you are dead. Whatever it is that dream is. Surely if you're 65, your dream of being a world champion gymnast at the Olympic Games is probably not a reasonable one. But everything else that is achievable, that anybody can accomplish, you can do it. And you must always remember that if it's a God-sized dream, He's going to give you the resources, the energy, the willpower, the knowledge. All the things that you need to achieve that is already in you. But every day that you spend saying it's too late is one day you lose. So whatever it is that God's put in your belly, in your spirit, in your heart, whatever it is that you love and you wanted to do, some of you had a dream to go somewhere in the world, to do something, to write a book, to make a movie, to whatever it is that you wanted to do. I'm here to tell you it's not too late. As long as you are breathing in and breathing out, there is still time. You still have time. And the fact of the matter is you don't know how much you have. So there's no better time to start than right now. The only exception to this rule really is for those of you who regret not expressing love for the people that you love and now they have gone on to be with the Lord or gone into eternity, right? You feel like, well, it's too late for that. And for that, I've got something that's going to set you free. Right? For those of you who are living with regret right now about not telling your grandfather or your parent that has passed or your godmother that you love them while they were alive enough, right? You didn't tell them enough and you're living with that regret on a day-to-day basis. I gotta tell you something. This has nothing to do with them. This is about you. What you're regretting is not how they're feeling. What you're regretting is how you're feeling. So it's time to get over yourself. I used to be that way too. I cried for months because I didn't let my godmother know how much I loved her, and I wish I had appreciated her more while she was alive and all of those things. But the fact is I can't change that right now. And you know what the other fact is? She doesn't care right now. It does not hurt her right now. It does not affect her in any way right now. And me feeling the remorse of it does not fix it. What I can do is make sure that the people who are with me now know how I feel. Make sure they know that I love them. Does that make sense? So most of the times when we're pining over not expressing ourselves to those who have gone before, it's really our own consciences that we're trying to appease. So everybody's cracking up in the studio because of what I'm going to ask you to do right now. If you have a mirror close by, I need you to get in front of it. And if you don't, pick up your phone and reverse the camera. So you look at yourself. And I want you to just take your hand and put it right here on your heart. And I want you to say, self, Cheryl, I forgive you. And then receive it. Say, I accept your apology. Thank you. Or whatever it is you need to say. Say, I'm forgiven. Thank you. And just let yourself breathe. It's okay. You're okay. So far, in order to live a life without regret, we've learned a few very important things. One is to see something or a portion of your life as finished, not as a failure. Two, forgive yourself too. If you're going to forgive others, Make sure you forgive yourself too. 3, remember, it's not too late until you're dead. It's not too late to start that new venture, to begin that new walk, to live life loving yourself, not more than others, but loving yourself as well. It's not too late until you're dead, and you won't be dead until God says so. The last thing I want to tell you is to endeavor to live up to God's expectations of you and not to man's expectations. You might think, well, God's standards are higher, so therefore living up to God's expectations would take more of you. But it's not true. God's standards may be higher, but his expectations are not. This is such a dichotomy. Sometimes people don't get this because they're like, well, God expects me to be perfect as he is perfect. Do you know that God knows you inside out 100%? There is nothing about you that he is not completely aware of. So don't you think it would be really weird of God to expect from you what he knows you will never deliver with his full knowledge disclosure? He is omniscient. There is nothing that you do that can surprise him. Therefore, his expectations of you cannot and will not exceed his perfect knowledge of you. I know. But think about it. You do not surprise God. However, if you spend your life trying to live up to people's expectations of you, you will always disappoint them and you'll disappoint yourself. So even now, as adults, many of us live our lives trying to live up to our parents' expectations of us, to our bosses, to our pastors, to people that don't even matter. 90% of the time, we just set false expectations based on what we think people expect of us. So we work extra hard to get accolades from people. We spend extra money that we don't even make to make sure family members feel like we're at a certain level of income, or that we love them at a certain level. Honey, let me tell you something. The only person in this world whose expectations you are responsible to live up to is your Abba's. And when you do that, when you live a life that pleases him, when you do what he asked you to do, and you know that what you're doing fulfills his calling and his measure of your life, then all the other things, all the other people that truly love and care for you also get their expectations met. Because when you're faithful to him, you're faithful to those that you love, you're faithful to yourself, you're faithful to your calling. So one way to live without regret is to know that in those last moments of your life, even though what people wanted and what people expected might not come to pass, as long as your maker, the one you're about to meet face to face, is satisfied, as long as he can look at you and say, well done, then you've met his expectations and you've done the best with the life that you were given. So with those 4 things, and I know some of it seems very abstract and very surreal, but I know it made such a huge difference in my life when I realized, you know what? Yesterday is yesterday. Tomorrow, hopefully, if God is willing, we get a chance to live in it. Therefore, today is the day that we make the decisions to do the very next best thing. And the very next best thing ensures that what we put into this day is stuff that matters. It's stuff that makes a difference, not only to our lives, but to people around us. It's stuff that may not make a name for us, but it will give us the satisfaction of knowing that these 24 hours were very well spent. And preacher girl, if you're listening to this podcast right now, you just listened to 20 minutes that were well spent. However, don't turn it into a regret. Don't just listen in one ear and let it go out the other ear, but listen to what I'm trying to tell you, because it makes a difference in your life. It will make a difference in how you finish. It can't change what has happened, but it can certainly change what is about to happen. the year is coming to an end, and I'm so glad. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending such a great portion of 2019 with us. It's been such a good one, and over the next few weeks we'll have even more exciting end of year and holiday things planned for you. So I want you to be sure and stay tuned. Jump into the Preacher Girl community, apply to become a PG Insider. It's free for you. You just have to register at pastorsharo.com. And above all, remember, I love you, and if God called you, then no one can uncall you.